All right. All right. We're live, Corey. We will get this thing kicking in a second here.
Sounds good.
All right. Got to remember how to put up the banners and all that stuff. All right, we're going to get going in just a second, everybody. Appreciate you stopping by. All right, let's get going. I'm Keith Niebuhr of Gators Online, and that is Corey Bender of Gators Online. And this is the Talking Gators Recruiting Show, live edition. We got a lot to cover today. On Wednesday, kind of the dust settled with the 2024 recruiting class. For now, the Florida Gators could still add some transfers down the road. But right now, the dust is settled for the most part. And we're going to take a look today at the class as a whole. We're going to grade it by position. We're going to give our general thoughts. We're going to give an overall grade of the class. Biggest impact players in year one, most likely to be a first-round pick, most likely to outperform their ranking, a player with the most approved because of their ranking. And then a few final thoughts on the class, and then we're going to take your questions. But again, Keith Niebuhr, Corey Bender, Gators Online, Talking Gators Recruiting. Let's get going. Corey, your overall thoughts on the recruiting class, and then we'll get into the grading breakdown. But just what'd you think, man? What did they do well? Did they not do well?
I think it was a solid class, not a leap by any means, but also I think they were able to salvage some of the class as well. I mean, towards the end, some guys flip elsewhere, momentum starts to pick up, and I know a lot of noise was focused on Zay Mincy and a lot of these guys down the stretch. They weren't able to get him, but they were able to get Jameer Grimsley. So I thought, even though, like you said, the season didn't go as planned, they were still able to get some priority needs in this class. A lot of these position groups that they wanted to really prioritize, they have a lot of kids at that group too. I know DB, they sound about 5 of them, defensive line and edge, same thing. So I think you got to be proud if you're a Florida fan. It could be better. Obviously, I know a lot of people look at the early class ranking where it was in the summer, but we always say anyone can be an off-season all-star. It's about maintaining that. And I think Florida did a decent job given the circumstances.
Well, I think if you just went by the high school and the junior college class, we're going to talk about transfers today too, guys, because a recruiting class now is all-encompassing. High school, junior college, and transfers. I think if you just took a look at the high school and the JUCOs, Corey, there were some positions that were, pretty bare. Offensive line being one. Defensive back was just okay. But then you add these transfer additions, and then all of a sudden you've got the year one impact guys that you don't normally get too much out of high school guys, and then overall depth at the position. So the cool thing, and Billy Napier mentioned this in his press conference the other day, you build a team year for year now. And we've always said this, you have to build two things at once. You've got to build a program, which is this, but you also have to do this, build a team. So you got to do these two things at one time. So overall, not a bad class, in my opinion. It could have been better. Obviously, there were some misses. There were some late flips. Some flips didn't really hurt Florida. Some, quite frankly, weren't ideal. But Corey, I almost called you Jerry for some reason. Corey, Florida has right now the number 10 recruiting class in the country. Now, this is not including the transfers. Number 10 class in the country. 2 5-stars in the On3 industry rankings, 12 4-stars. That's very good. So 14 of your 20 guys are 4 or 5 stars. The average rating per commit is 91.36. 90 is pretty much the 4-star threshold. I mean, there's some instances you can be a little bit under, but 90 is the 4-star threshold. Florida's at 91.36, and at last check, that was 6th best in the country. Now, the issue, though, is 6th best in the country really means you're almost 5th or 6th or 7th best in the SEC. So Florida, again, number 10 overall class, number 7 in the SEC. So who's number 1 in the SEC? Georgia, followed by Alabama. Then you've got, I'm looking at this, Texas, LSU, Auburn, and Oklahoma. Remember, Texas and Oklahoma are now in the SEC. Hard to believe, hard to fathom, but it's here. And so, those two in, and all of a sudden, I think Florida has the 7th best class in the SEC. So, again, now it's 7 out of 16 teams. And if you have difference makers, Corey, that can elevate it. If you have a quarterback of a Tim Tebow caliber, I'll actually always use a guy that you and I covered, Deshaun Watson. he signed it with Clemson in a recruiting class that wasn't even top 15.
Mm-hmm.
But he was able to elevate the program. So there are instances where you can outperform your overall class ranking. All right, Corey, quarterback position. 2 guys have been added. DJ Lagway, #1 quarterback recruit in the country. Phenomenal recruiting job by the Gators and by Florida Victorious and Florida's other NIL entities, whoever was involved.
Yeah, whoever's involved.
The detail. Yeah. And then they added Clay Millen, 3-star Colorado State transfer. Corey, 2 years ago, he started. So you got the boom with DJ Lagway, probably be the #2 guy this year, will play a lot, move to the #1 position most likely in 2025. Then you got an experienced veteran to come in and be your #3 guy. This is an A+ to me.
Yeah. I was going to say it's hard to recruit too. When you have a guy like DJ Lagway coming in, a 5-star, a lot of these kids are competitive. They want to play. And obviously a lot of kids will still go to a school and they'll compete with those kids. Not all kids shy down. I'm not saying that. But it's hard. It is hard to recruit when you sign a elite quarterback like that. So I thought with Florida getting Clay on board, I think that's exactly what they needed. They didn't need a guy that was maybe a kind of a fast riser at the end of the cycle who is coming out of high school. This guy has college experience, and obviously, he has a little bit has age too. So I think the maturity part too, and it gives you another option with DJ Lagway. Because let's be honest, outside of Graham Mertz and DJ, it's fairly slim at quarterback. So I think Florida did exactly what they need to do. They need to hit the portal for a quarterback and try to find a guy who, who's motivated, who's tasted success, but, wants to kind of get back. And I think for him, going from Colorado State to Florida, he has a good opportunity ahead of him. I know Billy Napier is going to give him an honest look like he does with all his players. So we'll kind of go from there. But I thought it was a solid addition. And I agree, Keith. I think it was an A.
Yeah, running back position. I love both these guys. Kanan Daniels, 2,700 yards rushing. He's from West Point, Mississippi. That's the town right next to Starkville. So that was significant to pull him away from Mississippi State. I think as Florida people were sometimes like, Mississippi State, who cares? But Mississippi State's dangerous in that state. I didn't see Florida go in there and get Chris Jones out of that state. You know what I mean? So it's like
Louisiana too with LSU.
Yes,
probably
it's a challenge. Yeah, sorry, Corey. It's a challenge. So Kanan Daniels, Mississippi Player of the Year in his classification, had over 200 yards in the state championship game. Again, 2,700 yards rushing, 4-star prospect, outstanding player. And then Jaden Baugh, one of the undervalued guys, man. I love this guy. He's a 4-star recruit from Columbia High School in Decatur, Georgia, right inside the perimeter, but in Decatur of the metro Atlanta area. Big season, well over 1,000 yards, averaged about 10 yards a carry. Corey, he also started at safety. The game I went to, he had almost 200 yards rushing. He had a 50-something yard reception, and he dove for an interception. The guy literally does everything. To me, this is an A class. These aren't 2 guys that were top 100 recruits, top 50 recruits, but they are, power of Jaden Baugh and the shake and bake, also with power of Kanan Daniels. This group's got everything. Jabbar Jalouk hit a home run. A to me, but you only gave them a B+. Why not an A?
Yeah, no, I just think overall, I think both those guys are very solid. I think it's one of the best running back classes in the country. I just thought if I was going to give it an A, in my opinion, I was probably going to look for more of a higher rate guy, maybe a top 50 guy in that group. But either way, it's a solid group. And I was close to giving them an A. You can go either way with that. Both are big-time contributors. It kind of reminds me of, obviously, Etienne and Montrell Johnson. Johnson was kind of underrated coming from Louisiana, and Etienne had offers, but some schools cooled down the stretch, and they're both solid backs who really just kind of formed together and played well. And it'll be interesting. And seeing Jaden Baugh, too, he's a very big kid, man. He's built. And he's one of those guys that, between the tackles who can really – put his shoulder pads down and really lay the wood. So I think overall with this class, I think you get, like you said, Jabbar Jalouk, he's a big relationship guy. And I think having that trait as a coach really was a big determination in getting them in the class.
Quick story. I ran into a Florida coach late in the season, and we were talking about Jaden Baugh at a high school game. And, they can, off the record, they can tell you things, whatever, just, they can't. So I don't want to anybody think they did anything that they shouldn't have been doing. But basically, they said, hey, this guy could be a starting linebacker in the SEC. Forget about running back. He can do both. That's how talented he is. All right, Corey, wide receiver. Now, this is probably one of those areas, not probably, definitely one of those areas. I think both of us had higher expectations for Florida. You've got TJ Abrams of Fort Myers, Jeray Hawkins of IMG Academy in Bradenton. He's actually from West Virginia. 2 very fast guys. And then you added Shamir DK, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, the Wisconsin transfer who a couple years ago, when his quarterback was Graham Mertz, had a pretty good season. And so there's a lot of speed there. There's a lot to like, but there wasn't that elite guy. There wasn't that not everybody got Jeremiah Smith, only Ohio State did, but there wasn't that elite Jeremiah Smith, Cam Coleman, Ryan Williams type guy that you'd like to see the Florida Gators start to land. When you bring in a quarterback the caliber of DJ Lagway, I think that the natural inclination, Corey, is to think, okay, well, I'm going to have some big-time receivers coming in with them. Now, these guys are not bad players. Obviously, Abrams and Hawkins have some real upside there. I only gave this group a C+ because, though, it just sort of lacks that, who's the 6'3" guy? Who's
the face of that group?
That's right. I gave him a C+. You gave him a B-. We're on the same page on this one, I think, Corey.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree, Keith. I think, like I said, it's a solid class. They don't have that A guy, that face of the group who's going to – kind of like last cycle before Eugene Wilson. You knew he was going to come in and be that difference maker. And the reason I kind of went up in the B range too, watching Tawaski Abrams' film, I think he's a guy that – he committed kind of early, and I'm not saying people stop watching his film, but when you really dissect his film, I mean, the kid's very elusive, a home run threat, and I was like, wow, this kid – he could be ranked a little bit higher. He's a guy I could see outplaying his ranking down the road. So that was the tilting point with me. And like you say, Keith, not much size. I know, obviously, with the Wisconsin transfer, I mean, he obviously is one of the bigger group, but with Hawkins and Abrams, they're not the biggest guys. So, yeah, that's where I'm kind of at, B- C+ range. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, man, and that's not terrible. But by the way, here's one position you and I both agree. We don't think they're done yet. In other words, the high school and junior college guys, obviously, those elite guys are done. Transfer portal, though, that next window after spring practice, I think that that's where you say, okay, let's see what's out there. And also, it's not just let's see what's out there. It's players at other schools saying, I don't like my new coaching staff. I don't like my new quarterback. I don't like my new offense. I don't like my new offensive coordinator. I'm tired of being in the cold. I think I'm going to go give Florida a look, that kind of thing. So it works both ways. All right, Corey, tight end. I'll just speak for this one. Amir Jackson is the only pickup. At one point, Florida was going to take two. They ended up taking one. High upside guy, 6'5", 220 pounds, also plays basketball. He's a late enrollee. He won't be there till the spring, so year one impact probably going to be minimal. But high upside guy, like I said, does three sports, plays basketball, runs track, plays football. At 6'5", 220, he's very athletic. He goes up and gets the ball, high points the ball really well, which you want out of your tight end. He's always played receiver. He's got to learn how to block. One other thing about him, though, when he's not playing three sports, he's going to add weight, okay? He's also going to be eating a lot more in college. This guy that's going to be, Corey, 6'5", 255 in a few years. We've seen so many basketball players transition to tight end and become excellent tight ends. He should be pretty good. All right, next up, Corey, offensive line. This is an interesting one. Again, no true home run in terms of ranking, but when you really look at it now, you've got Fletcher Westphal is your 1 4-star signee. Marcus Maskell, a player that Florida beat out LSU for. He's another guard tackle type. Then you've got 2 3-stars. A lot of people think they're project types. Mike Williams, maybe a guy that may be better than his ranking from Baltimore. Big offensive tackle. Noah Portageon played like semi-pro German football over in Europe. 3-star guy. If you just had those 4, man, I'm thinking C, because there's no I mean, where's the Lomas Brown? I mean, there's not a lot of Lomas Browns, but where's the DJ Humphreys? Where's the Mo Collins? You don't see a lot of that. But then you look at the transfer portal, and Florida's bringing in a couple guys. Brandon Crenshaw Dixon of San Diego State, one of the best players out on the West Coast last year. And Devin Manuel, a guy who started 4 games at offensive tackle for Arkansas last year, got that coaching from the great offensive line coach / head coach, Sam Pittman. And so adding those guys helps, but to me, it's still only a B. There wasn't that elite guy. I got a guy mowing out here. You don't have that. There wasn't that headline grabber. Although, look, Fletcher Westphal, Marcus Maskell, Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, these are good players, but I think good. And then how does Florida get this offensive line to the next level? And as a fan, you're thinking, man, there needed to be more. There needed to be more. Who are the big name dudes here? Now, they don't always pan out. The Jordan Seeds of the world, but you would have liked to seen one of those guys at least in the class. B for me, B minus for you, Corey. Your thoughts on the O-line class?
Yeah, I think the one word to describe that group is upside. There's a lot of potential with that group. A lot of guys are athletic. They can play a tackle position. I don't like saying boom or bust, but guys that could really have a high ceiling, or they can kind of be in the middle of the pack. So I think, like you said, Keith, I think getting Dixon from the West Coast, I think he's a guy that should challenge for a starting spot right away. Right tackle comes to mind. Damian George has been worried about him switching the guard. So I think he'd be a natural fit at right tackle opposite of Austin Barber. So I think you have a guy that can hopefully shore up your offensive line, at least on that one side. I think Florida need to add another portal addition. I like Devin Manuel. He's a tower at tackle, a big kid who can move. But like I said, there's a reason why he only started about 4 games. And we'll see. I think when you go to high school, too, same thing. A lot of guys with really good frames, the guys that can be really good at the next level, but you just got to be patient. So, I think right now it's about a C+ for me. I think that's what I put about a C.
All right, let's take a couple of questions, Corey, not a few questions just on the offensive side of the ball. Then we'll get into the defensive breakdown. We got some other stuff. We're trying to juggle a lot of balls right now. So, all right. So, Corey, Dwayne Grant says, that's great picture, Dwayne. Man, that's a hell of a running back class, especially having 2 of that caliber. Couldn't agree more. Patrick says, do you guys think the O-line recruiting is getting any better? Seems to be a weakness. Corey, Florida leads for Peyton Joseph, a 4-star guy in the 25 class. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think it's getting a little bit better. I think it could be. I mean, you look at their first cycle, they had like the Roger Kearns. They had a lot of big names come in. I thought this last class, we just mentioned it, it was kind of the C range. I think they're doing better. I think it could be much better, though. I think right now, if you said, hey, Rob Sell, Darnell Stapleton, how has their recruiting been since at Florida? To me, I would say probably a B-. That's where I lay, Keith. I mean, where are you at with all that?
Yeah, I wasn't so much here for the first couple of cycles. But yeah, B+. I mean, let's just be honest.
It needs to get better.
Well, and look, some of the guys they've signed, Rod Kearney, Najee Harris, these guys could end up being outstanding players. We just haven't seen enough of them yet to know. We may look back in a year or two and say, hey, these guys were a lot smarter than everybody gave them credit for. So we'll see.
Najee Harris, when he came out, he was my guy picked as the most underrated, not talked about. I loved his film as a center. So we'll see. Like you said, it's early, so we got to see.
All right. I'm trying to do a better job not cutting Corey off. I know people get mad at me. Dwayne Grant with the question now. You cut me off that time. No. Dwayne Grant says, also, I think we're going to see DK take off come fall, and Tank is elite. So who's Tank? That's Jeray Hawkins, the high school receiver signing. You might be right, Dwayne, because, again, DK a couple years ago, when he played with Graham Mertz, had 30-something catches, I think over 600 receiving yards. He's very fast. One thing I'd like to see them do, Corey, again, I'm not a coach. I don't certain things don't work up with certain sizes of guys.
You used to be a little league coach, though, weren't you?
No, I wasn't. No, but most people that do think they know more than Bill Belichick. But DK, so if he can do those pop passes and if he can do a lot of the short stuff maybe that Eugene Wilson did, I think you're almost – now that Eugene Wilson you think is going to evolve and progress as a receiver, the next step for him is to get him more downfield in space, less of the pop passes, and you can use him to take the top off of defense. And you can do that if you don't need him for the other stuff. And if you don't need him for the other stuff, that means DK is probably doing what he needs to be doing. And also a guy like Tank Hawkins, perhaps. All right, let's see here. A couple more comments, and then we'll get on to the defensive side of the ball. Johnny says, until the O-line gets much better, we will be at the bottom of the SEC. Johnny, you're not going to get any disagreements. You will not get any disagreements with us there. All right, Nathaniel says, Urban Meyer beats Alabama with a starting offensive line full of 3 stars. All right. More from Dwayne. Man, the OL is definitely going to be better. Crenshaw Dixon, right tackle. Barber, left tackle. I kind of like to see Barber back at right tackle, personally. George and Kearney inside. Jake Slaughter at center. That should be better. It should be
Slaughter's been solid at center. He's another kid when you see him in person. He's a big kid, man, Slaughter.
Yeah. I mean, look. For you and I both think the roster should be better next year. The question is so is the schedule. So, we'll see. All right, let's get into some more of the let's get this back into grading the Gators recruiting class. Defensive line and edge. Corey, you don't get off the ball or off the field if you're not getting off. If you're not, what am I trying to say? If you're not stopping third downs, right? You need edge rushers. And obviously you're winning and losing games. It's great to have DJ Lagway. It was great to have Tim Tebow. It was great to have Danny Werfel. But, boy, you're winning a lot of games because of Kevin Carter, Brad Culpepper, Harvey Thomas, I believe his name was, Ed Chester, Alonzo
You're
Johnson.
like a Wikipedia when it comes to Florida Gators. I love it.
Alonzo Johnson, need to tip our cap to him, and Super Sky Point passed away this week. The Gator great from the 1980s, All-American on the defensive line. You win games because of those guys. Defensive line recruiting, Corey, was just kind of going okay. It wasn't Sean Spencer's best work. The 2023 class had all these studs, right? But this class wasn't great, all right? But then you added L.J. McCray late, 5-star edge / defensive end. Then you picked up Joey Slackman in the transfer portal from Penn, Ivy League guy, but the number 2 defensive lineman in the on-3 transfer portal rankings. Then you added – these are all late pickups, by the way. Then, McCray was committed in October, but then, wavered a little bit on signing day, I guess. So who really knows? Then you picked up DeAndre Robinson, 4-star defensive tackle from Orlando Jones late. I mean, we're talking real late. He signed with Texas in December, planned to enroll in January, never showed up, and ended up at Florida. You signed Mekhi Barrow, 360, 370-pound straight nose tackle. He's got a lot of work to do, but there's some potential there, super strength. You added Brian Taylor from the junior colleges. You can play end or edge, a lot of potential there. I mean, the Georgias of the world offered him. And then in the portal, you added George Gums of Northern Illinois, a player none of us had ever heard from or heard about. He only had like 3.5 sacks last year, Corey, but it turns out that was his first year playing defense in college. Florida staff saw enough film to think this guy could be special, not just good, special. Like there's some real traits there. And I ended up with a B class for me, A- for you on the defensive line, which again, you have to stack classes on the O-line and the D-line. You can't just have one good year and then 2 bad ones and then another good one. You got to stack. This stacks on top of last year. Corey, A- from you. What do you think of this group, man?
Yeah, I love this group, man. I think Brian Taylor, when you watch the film, I think he could be a guy that can start like right away. I mean, I think he's explosive, man. He can bend well. So I think if you look at 3-star, I want people to understand too, JUCO rankings can kind of be tricky. It's not like high school. So you see 3-star, I wouldn't kind of put too much stock into that. Same with George Gums. I mean, like you said, Keith, he played tight end. He's a big athlete who's still learning the position. But I think a guy that could surprise a lot of people this fall. I mean, at the end of the day, he's not a high school kid. He had production. I know it's the Mid-American Conference. But like you said, D1 is D1. He has experience. And LJ McCray, I mean, we can talk about him all day. He's the one, I think, physically who can obviously play from day one. And just to go over, I know it's a big group, Joey Slackman, Robinson. I think it's a solid group, man. I think, honestly, I could almost run with the A, and that's only my opinion going off film. So I think it could surprise a lot of people. I think Gums could surprise a lot of people, and I think Taylor should be a good player if, watching this film.
Yeah, I'm looking back. I'm looking at my B grade and your A- grade. Maybe I should have given it a B+, but we'll see.
Well, the thing is, too, I thought initially when we were going to do grades, I thought maybe we'll split D-line and the edge. So it's a tough one to grade because you're combining the two.
I never know whether to put edge with linebackers or so like LJ McCray. Yeah, they told him he was going to be an edge. Now he's going to be a defensive end / edge. And quite frankly, LJ's 6'6", 270, guys. He might be 6'6". He looks like Myles Garrett. He might be 6'6", 320 in a year. Okay, we don't know. I mean, like he can handle some weight now. He's got to he's got a little baby fat on him. When that turns into muscle, that's going to be 20 pounds. The guy's going to be 290 pounds in a year. So we don't know. All right, Corey, linebacker. One of our old favorite coaches was Jay Bateman. Love talking to that guy. We'd run into him out in front of the building at camps, at football games, all that stuff. Boy, he did a hell of a job. Miles Graham, top 100 national recruit from the On3 industry rankings out of Gainesville Bueltz, originally College Park Woodward Academy, where his coach was. I know my man Dwayne loves my Gator history. John Hunt. Well, John Hunt was a starting offensive tackle at the University of Florida in the early 80s when they were very good, by the way, would probably beat the death out of last year's Florida team, if we're being totally honest. And then Aaron Childs, who is just outside the top 100 for On3, but look, an outstanding player. I mean, he's inside the top 100 for the On3 industry rankings. Then you added Grayson Pup Howard from South Carolina, player that had a promising freshman season for the Gamecocks. You did lose the kid from Largo. I'm already out of sight, out of mind. You want to help me out with the name? Gator fans probably be happy that I forgot his name. He flipped to Miami on signing day. You don't ever want to look. He's a fine player. He's got high upside. We both like talking to him. But if you were going to lose a guy, that was the one guy you could afford to lose, quite frankly. Florida crushed it at linebacker, Corey. Graham and Childs should make early impacts. Graham is already at UF. Childs doesn't get there till this summer, so that would be the one issue there. Amazing skill set. Grayson Howard is a dude probably starting before long. Corey, thoughts?
Yeah, no, 100%. And just kind of where Keith was hearing all along, too, from people close to the program with Miles Graham. They think he could be a guy that starts fairly early in the season. And, watching him during Under Armour All-American Week, I could see why. Very instinctive. Just your kind of throwback linebacker who's also very active in pass coverage. So I think he's going to be a guy that just lights up the stat sheet, throughout his Florida career. Aaron Childs, man, I mean, he was a kid when I saw him on Under Armour Week. He didn't even look like a high school kid. This kid looked like he was a sophomore in college already, almost about 6'3", and he has a lot of experience on the edge. It'll be interesting. I think he'll be a big Mike linebacker, kind of like Grayson Howard is, but I think you can move him around because he does have a lot of success as a pass rusher. And like you said too, Keith, Grayson Howard, I know we did our grade in the class. We have it as a 3-star. That's his transfer ranking. In my opinion, personally, I think, like Keith was saying, he might be a starter right away. I think he's a guy that kind of outperforms that. But like you said, an A from both of us. And, yeah, I definitely have no regrets putting an A for that group.
Before we get going, I want everybody to grade our backgrounds. So I got the new artwork there, kind of. I'm
in a prison cell.
Yeah, it looks like you're in your mom's basement. She made you take down your Sports Illustrated swimsuit covers from the wall,
Well, that's the thing, man. Like, I have all these, I have accent walls in the 2 rooms, but I do my office looks like I haven't touched it. It's just a desk and a chair and a TV. I need to do better though.
Well, you are repping the. Let's see the hat here. You're a Lions fan. Everybody knows that. All right.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Well, it was a hell of a season. Defensive back. Yeah. I'm giving this group a B. You're giving it an A-. Let's take a look at it. The highlight. I mean, the high school guys. The big name guys, Jameer Grimsley, signed with Alabama. He was a short-term signee. When Nick Saban, he was actually enrolled in classes. Nick Saban retired. Congrats to him, and congrats to everybody else in the SEC. And Jameer Grimsley went in the portal because not only did Nick Saban leave Alabama, but so did T-Rob, Travaris Robinson, the defensive backs coach. I always kind of felt like Grimsley was a guy that would sort of get homesick anyway, but grew up a Gator fan, made it easy for him to end up transferring to Florida. Greg Smith, Florida picked him up, offered him when he was a no-name 3-star mid-fall senior evaluation guy. He ends up in the on-3 300 at the end of the year, and 4-star guy. Josiah Davis, 3-star safety from Nashville Berrien. I kind of like him. Some of our readers aren't crazy about him. I like that he can hit. I think you need some of those guys. 3-star cornerback Teddy Foster, high upside guy. And now that's the high school guys. In the transfer portal, Triquez Bridges, the Oregon transfer from Lynette, Alabama, safety. Safety corner, and then safety DJ Douglas of Tulane, and safety Asa Turner of Washington. Again, a guy that, quite frankly, played a lot of big games for Washington the last few years, former 4-star recruit. Corey, it's a solid group. I give it a B. You give it a little bit of a better grade, though.
Yeah, I'm kind of going back and forth on that, honestly. Now, it's kind of like what you said. I don't know what group we're talking about. You were kind of going back and forth on your grade. Yeah, I think it's a solid group, man. I think it's another – kind of reminds me kind of the O-line group in a sense. It's a better group grade-wise, but a lot of guys with upside who could be really good who I don't think have hit their ceiling. I think Triquez Bridges, he's one that intrigues me just because he had such a good season 2 years ago. I mean, I think they gave him 3rd team or 2nd team all Pac-12, but honestly, look at his stats. I'm surprised he wasn't 1st team. I think he could be a guy that kind of really surprises people. I think he can play at star or safety. I think Asa Turner, though, I mean, getting a guy with that much experience who's familiar with Will Harris and who's been productive, I thought that was very big. I know Jordan Castell, Bryce Thornton, they're good players, but they're still young. So adding a guy like that for some leadership, I thought was big. And I think the same thing. Teddy Foster, I watched his film. I think he's definitely could outplay his – I think he's a very bouncy, tall cornerback. And Jameer Grimsley, it's tough, man, because he is a really good recruit, and I love his ability at receiver too. It's just he didn't play much as a senior, and he's still, learning the position. So he's very obviously a big-time recruit, but I'm excited to kind of see how he develops. So I think it's a solid group altogether.
Yeah, here's what I like about especially the transfer additions. So the secondary, Corey, I thought the secondary kind of stunk last year. I'll just be honest. I mean, some good individual moments, but miscommunication, missed assignments, guys out of position, unbelievably bad tackling, right? So Asa Turner's a tough guy, Triquez Bridges is a tough guy. DJ Douglas is a tough guy. You know what they all have in common? All three of those guys played on teams that won 10 or more games 2 straight years, right? They're winners. They're used to winning. There's going to be an expectation, okay, that hey, I need to tackle this guy now because if he gets 11 more yards, that could cost us the game, right? And I feel like that's been missing from the Florida secondary. People who grew up following the Gators remember all the big hitters, the guys that they patrolled the back end, the Reggie Nelsons, the Major Wrights, the Jarvis Williams, the Lewis Olivers, and going back even further.
Yeah.
And that's been really missing the last couple of years, last few years. And even though there's been individual defensive backs, Corey, that made the NFL, overall as a whole, you weren't looking at that secondary and saying, man, these guys are enforcers back there. And maybe Asa Turner, DJ Douglas, Bridges can give you some of that. I think Josiah Davis potentially could do that. Grimsley is a physical dude. But we got to, again, he's been injured. We got to see what he's like full go. Greg Smith, freaky athlete. Maybe Asa Turner's physical mentality and leadership and desire to win rubs off on some of those guys. Him and Bridges have played in a lot of big games. Douglas was on a team that beat Southern Cal and Caleb Williams. I think it was the Cotton Bowl a couple years. These guys have an expectation, man. Okay, these ain't 5-7 dudes. They didn't go to Gainesville to be 5-7. So I think that's significant. All right, Corey, let's take a couple questions, and then we'll do our overall thoughts on the signing class. A couple questions and comments. Let's see. Lucas Mann's got one. Thoughts on the DBs, and it was an earlier question. He says, and by that I mean thoughts on new secondary coach Will Harris. I think he's got in there and he's been energetic, Corey, and he's getting the job done. Thoughts on Will Harris, the new secondary?
Yeah, no, even seeing him after junior days, speaking with families and speaking with recruits, you can just tell he can win over a room. He's a very personable guy. I saw him many times on these visits going out his way and making sure the parents were good. And I just think as far as recruiting, he's a young guy, energetic, like you said, Keith. I think he was a great hire. I think when he came in, we all looked at it. We knew his history, but how is it going to work in the SEC? How is it going to mold in this program? And so far, so good. Like I said, I know it's just the offseason. It's been a few months, but I think overall you have to be pretty pleased. I think Hilton Stubbs is a recruitment that comes to mind because, when Corey Raymond left, he even told me, he goes, no comment. You could tell he was kind of bummed out about that decision. But right after that first meeting with him, he told the Gators were right back at the top, and I think that speaks volumes.
All right, a few comments here. Johnny says, guys, though we like the D-line recruits, that we just won't put us where we need to be. You need more LJ McCrae's. I don't think there's any question about that. You got to hope that sometimes, Johnny, you catch lightning in a bottle too. Some of Florida's better players historically were 3-star guys that just really – I don't know that anybody knew Javon Curse was going to be Javon Curse. Let's put it that way. So you hope there's some of that in there. You hope DeAndre Robinson, who's got all the physical tools, just becomes a beast. I had a very good senior season, but you need him to take 3, 4, 5 more steps. LJ McCrae's been beating guys because he's bigger, stronger, quicker, and smarter than everybody else. But now he's got to take the next steps as well to truly become an elite defensive lineman / edge. It's not easy, but you're right. Dwayne says the defense overall has easily flipped talent-wise. Let me know if you guys agree, but I think it's with the new playoff format, if we can win enough games and possibly make it in. Dwayne, the schedule's so hard. Maybe. Here's the thing. 12-team playoff starts next year. We're just talking recruiting. But with the 12-team playoff, and you look at Florida's schedule, 9 wins may get you in, right? 9-3 probably getting you in that final 12. So is that a pipe dream? I don't know. A lot of y'all are going to chime in, I'm sure.
They have the schedule in place to, if they do win, like I said, you can't argue the schedule and strength of schedule at all.
All right, Tawan, I hope I'm pronouncing your name wrong. You ask questions all the time, and I hope I'm not butchering this. Teddy Foster is an underrated state champion. Very good defensive back. Yeah, very good player. Let's see here.
Real quick, though, I want to add on that real quick. And I noticed because you went down to Sarasota many times to see them. I didn't realize Chris McCorkle had such a good season compared to 9 interceptions, I believe it was. I didn't know he had a better season than Teddy did. I didn't realize.
2025 DB, we should point out.
That's been in my mind all week when I've seen that because he's been on the rise. I'm like, wow.
One more comment on the defense. Patrick says, I think this Gator defense will make a jump this year. He likes all the coaches, and Billy is stacking the talent up on that side. Yeah, hard to disagree with that. I mean, again, it's the talent versus schedule. And then the other factor is coaching. I mean, can these guys get it done as coaches too? I mean, there's a lot of unknown variables. There are for everybody. We don't know we don't know what the season, how it's going to play out, obviously. All right, Corey, overall thoughts on this UF class as a whole. We're pushing 30 minutes here, 35 minutes. So we're going to go about 15 more minutes. Overall thoughts. Here's what I said. Lots of good pieces. Lagway and McCray are guys that can help change the trajectory of the program. Miles Graham, Aaron Childs, Fletcher Westfall, Jackson and the running backs, also capable of being difference makers. With all the late flips to other schools, the class took a significant hit late last year, but then they did a lot of nice winter work, particularly in the transfer portal. There's some areas in this class that are really good, but others that are just okay, Corey. Let's just be honest. Florida did add some potentially key pieces that should provide some immediate help in the portal, so you got to factor that in. And you've got a solid foundation for the future. The question isn't, is there talent? Is there quality and quantity? The question is, did Florida gain ground on the elite programs in the SEC? And that's to be determined. And that's why I give this class, as much as I like it, a B grade, because you have to factor in who you're recruiting against. It's still the number 7 class in the SEC, even though it was very good. Corey?
Yeah, no, that's a good way where I want to start at too, because like you said, you can have a really good class, but is it going to matter on the field? Are you going to get some new wins because of that? And that's kind of where I'm at too. I think when you look at it on paper, it's a solid class. I think Florida did a great job of keeping. I mean, obviously you lost Xavier Philsane, but I think a lot of us kind of thought that could happen down the stretch. But keeping McCray, keeping Lagway in the class, that was a major job by this staff. But I also kind of go back in the D-line edge group, man. I think that group can be really special. If you haven't watched Brian Taylor's film, I definitely think you should. I think even George Gums is a guy that I'm excited to see in spring ball. I think overall the class is good. And linebacker group, I think you have an early contributor, possible starter, Miles Graham. So you have set up for the future with Lagway. You have guys who can play early with Graham and McCray. And I thought you got some much needed transfers. I would have liked Florida to get, maybe a little bit better of an offensive line class, maybe one more quality transfer to throw in the mix with Dixon, but we'll see how it plays out. I think overall, given how their season went and how this momentum train can be, I think Florida, did a pretty solid job. It's a solid B for me.
All right, Corey, biggest impact in year one or two guys. Who do you got?
Oh, we're including transfers too?
Well, let's keep it to the high school class right now.
I think McCray. I mean, we just talked about Miles Graham. I'll just go with McCray just because I wrote him on the other day. His size and just tenacity and athleticism is too good to keep on the sideline. Not saying he's going to be a day one starter. I'm not saying that, but Florida's known for rotating their defensive linemen quite a bit. I just think he's too good, too big to keep on the sideline. He's a 5-star for a reason. I
think my guy for biggest impact year one of a high school guy it's got to be Miles Graham. I'm looking at defensive line's got a lot of young guys that are making that step forward, and I think LJ McCray will take that step this time next year. I think he's going to play this coming season, but I think the bigger step will be year one into year two. So I'm going to go with Miles Graham. Yeah. It's a position where Florida has been lacking, quite frankly, and he's a hell of a player. He's a heck of an athlete, and he's one of the smartest and most competitive guys I think I've ever seen covering high school recruiting. Corey, who is one guy that maybe even a 4-star, but not enough guys are talking about? I'm going to say Fletcher Westfall. That's my pick. I think this is a guy that is an NFL body. When you look at Fletcher Westfall, that is a guy that's got an NFL body. That is a guy that is hungry. That is a guy that has played defensive line and takes that defensive lineman. I know you like this, Corey. He's taking that defensive line mentality to the offensive line. So one guy not enough people are talking about, I say Fletcher Westfall. Who do you say?
Yeah, I was going to go Teddy Foster, but no, man, I'll go with Brian Taylor just because you see the 3-star label. He's a JUCO guy. He's kind of like this. It's a big class. You almost kind of forget certain guys, but when you watch his film and just ignore stuff, man, I think he could be a day one guy starter. I mean, he's just too explosive and big on the edge. So that's the guy I'm going with.
Most likely to be a first-round pick. Corey, you go first. Most likely to be a first-round pick.
Probably McCray. Yeah, just because it kind of reminds me of Gervon Dexter. He went in the second round, but same type of body mold where it's just you look at him. He doesn't even have to have the most success. You just look at him and coaches will say, hey, just give him to me. Let me work with them. I can get him to the next level. So I think, he has that pedigree to eventually be that, first rounder.
I guess I got to go DJ Lagway. I mean, number 2 recruit.
Yeah, that's easy. Yeah.
Number 1 quarterback in the country. Now, it wasn't what you would call the strongest quarterback class in the country. That doesn't matter. This guy, it's a hard position to evaluate in the sense of, look, somebody can have all the tools, but you just don't know how they're going to perform on Saturdays. That you just never know. but man, the tools are there, and he's really smart, and he's really likable. And I hear he's crushing it in off-season workouts. Guys are puking, and he's laughing. Okay, something different about this dude, man. I'm just telling you, Corey. I'm a believer. Okay, and so that would be my guy. Most approved based on their ranking, and I'll start, and then we'll go to you. It's got to be him again. It's got to be DJ Lagway. When you're the number one quarterback recruit in the country, people expect you to lead your team to something big. People expect you to be a first-round draft pick. They expect you to elevate your program. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on DJ Lagway. But God, if there's ever a guy that's unfazed by it, it seems like him. Now we'll see. The most popular quarterback is always the guy that's not playing. Once he starts playing, then the criticism becomes a real thing. Maybe there won't be a lot of criticism, though. I mean, we'll see. And Florida was ecstatic to get this guy, Corey. I mean, look, Clemson wanted him. Southern Cal made a late push. Texas A&M. I mean, look, anybody in the country would have taken this guy. But he does have a lot to prove. He knows it, and he's ready to go out and do it. Corey?
Yeah, for me, it's Jameer Grimsley for sure. And I say that just because I feel like the recruiting process before he got to Tampa Catholic, he was at Bloomingdale, feels like in over just 1 year, this thing just blew up out of control. Went to Tampa Catholic. He's a great receiver, but obviously a lot of people see him. He's a big kid, almost 6'3", legit 6'3", could play safety. He wants to play corner. You can put him all over the secondary, but I think – and also how much hype was behind that recruitment down the stretch with Florida trying to flip the Bama commit, and then him in the portal. His name has just been always in the headlines, and understandably so. He's a big-time talent, but he just hasn't played that much. And I'm curious to see what are the expectations from the fan base from him. Do they think he's going to come in right away and be this difference maker? I just think he needs to get his feet wet and just start playing again. It's been a while. So I think with him being out, I think he's a top 100 recruit with on 3. He has a lot to prove, I think, after his senior season.
Good pick. Most likely to outperform their ranking. In other words, a guy that maybe you think is going to be better than their ranking. Who do you have? And we'll stick with the high school guys right now.
Yeah, I think one guy that could – ooh, that's a good one, man. I'm going to go with Tawaski Abrams, man. I think we have him as a 3-star. I just really like his film. I'm not saying he's going to be Eugene Wilson or anything like that. He's just the one that comes off the top of my head right now. But, yeah, he's a solid player, man. I know everyone talks about Hawkins, and they're both very similar, but – same type of thing. If you haven't watched his film, I think a lot of people, if you haven't, will be surprised, how elusive he is.
I'm going to go with the guy. Again, I got some criticism for this on our board. Josiah Davis. Look, Florida didn't. He's a safety from Nashville, Georgia, not the other Nashville, Georgia Berrien High School. And Florida didn't beat out Georgia. They didn't beat out Bama or LSU for this guy. They beat out like Louisville. But there's just something about him. He played multiple positions last year. He was his team's starting quarterback. He's played running back too. He then played defense. He did everything for his team, which really was just not such a great team, right? And I feel like once he can concentrate on one side of the ball in one position, and then he can take off. And then also you watch his film, and there's a lot of him running into the box and laying the wood on people. I mean, I'm looking at that Florida secondary, Corey. I could be totally wrong on him. I don't know, man. Coaches are wrong on half the guys, and they're smarter than we are. But man, I just see a guy that could be an enforcer. I see a guy that could get down in the box and hit people hard and help change the identity of this Florida defense. I mean, what's the identity of Florida defense right now? Is anybody intimidated by this group? Hadn't been lately. So that's the kind of thing that's missing to me. We'll see. He's built really well. Get him in the weight room, see what happens. So that would be my choice. All right. Corey, a couple more things. Biggest transfer addition in your eyes? Who would it be? I mean, who's going to help this team right away? You give me one on each side of the ball if you want. It's up to you.
Yeah, no, I was going to go Dixon, lineman, but it's hard. I mean, he's an offensive lineman. I would go Joey Slackman. I just think he's a guy, if he's not starting, I think he's going to be heavy in the rotation. And just everything you read about this guy, from him just being so driven, a good leader. Yeah. I feel like the guy is just destined to be good. Like, he's just like kind of like what you said with Lagway, just a different, when it comes to those workouts, he just has that look on him where it's like, hey, I'm going to win, or it's not, like, I'm going to go all the way, or that's it. So I don't know. I think he's going to be good. Asa Turner's one, but I'm going to go with Slackman.
I'm going to say, I think Shamir, I don't know how to pronounce his first name, DK, the receiver transfer from Wisconsin. I just think there's going to be some symmetry with him and Graham Mertz. And I think having him is going to free up guys like Eugene Wilson, and having guys like Eugene Wilson is going to free up him. So I like that pickup. It's a guy that, I don't even think we have him in like the top 75 of the transfer receivers in the On3 transfer portal ranking. So that's who I like on offense. There's some other good guys too. On defense, I go back to Asa Turner. He was hurt a lot last year, but he played for a national championship. He was part of a rebuild. He saw a team do this. He knows what it takes. He knows what it takes to be a leader. He knows what it takes to win on Saturday, to be in the right place at the right time, to be smart on the field, to hit people, to be physical, to not make stupid mistakes. He's been coached by one of the best out there, Kalen DeBoer. I do believe that. I think that guy is phenomenal. And now he's taking that mentality. Plus, he's not an unskilled guy. I think the reason why he has this extra season that he needs is because he's been hurt. Otherwise, he'd probably be off to a professional career. So I like that pickup. So those would be my two guys. Corey, before we get to a few more questions, final thoughts on the class. We started with some thoughts, but your final thoughts on the class, high school transfer, everything. I'll just ask you a question. Is Florida better because of this group? I think
they're better, but I think better, but did they gain ground on other SEC teams? Not the top dogs, I don't think. I just think it's interesting, man. I don't know. I think Graham Mertz next year is going to be the X factor. I really do. I think if he plays really well, can get the ball around, I think Florida could be a lot better. But this class, I feel like they got a lot of pieces for him. I think defensively they got a lot of depth. They can rush the passer, but I don't know. Like I said, it's just such a gauntlet of a schedule to say, do they get better? It's going to be tough.
Well, I think it is group. It's group. I think it is a group that's going to help Florida be better. Again, better is relative, obviously, and you could be better but worse in the scoreboard too, or in the standings. So because of your schedule, but I like some elements. I like that on offense you brought in a guy like Brandon Crenshaw Dixon that is going to make your top 7 or 8 better on the offensive line. I like that you're bringing in DK at receiver, although I think you still need another one. I like what you've done with bringing in Joey Slackman on the defensive line. I love that you brought in Pup Howard. We haven't talked enough about him. Grayson Howard, the linebacker, a guy that's probably going to be a 2 or 3 year starter at Florida. Love that. All right. But really like what you did in the secondary for the things I spoke about earlier. You're bringing in guys like DJ Douglas, Bridges from Oregon, and Asa Turner from Washington that know how to win, that know how to play. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to get beat. They're going to miss a tackle. They're going to get be in the wrong place at the wrong time, but they know how to win. And I think that's an intangible thing that's hard to quantify in somebody's overall skill set. All right. Again, I always call out coaches for acting like culture is going to win them all these games. So I'm guilty of that too with this part, with these guys. I feel like they're going to add to a culture of winning, which is what Florida needs. I think you can sometimes forget how to win, and it's hard to break that cycle. So, Corey, I like this overall group. Let's get to a few questions here. All right. We already had that one earlier. Okay, let's see. Dwayne says, I think those DBs and the D-line will be the difference this year. All right. Tawan likes Josiah Davis, too. He says he's a hitter. Supposedly, he ran a 10.8, 10.9 in the 100. Corey Nathaniel says they need a Vince Wilfork type to help that defense. No doubt about that. No doubt.
Burrow has the size. We'll start there.
That's right. Johnny Cromwell says you guys are right. Did recruit at linebacker like they needed to. Must stop the top kids from leaving the state. That's it's a transient state, Johnny. This isn't like Louisiana or Mississippi or Alabama where guys want to go to the in-state schools necessarily. They're not born into it. You know what I mean? So it's a little tricky. Tawan says we got defensive linemen that are more agile than Vince Wilfork. Well, that's I think Florida is going to be a lot better on the defensive line this year. Dwayne says thoughts on D-line coach Gerald Chapman, as well as Cam James being elevated as a tweener. I think Gerald Chapman is going to do a fine job. When you watch those 2-lane defensive lines, they were solid. They got after it. They played 8 guys. So it fits right into what Florida needs. Corey, any thoughts on Gerald Chapman as a recruiter so far? You're talking to a lot of kids out there.
Yeah, recruiting. Yeah, no, I think overall it's kind of the same vibe I get with Will Harris. You can just tell very engaged with families, just very making kids feel at home. There's a bunch of times kids would be coming out of the building and he'd be like, this is my guy, this is my 26 recruit. Like, just kind of making these kids feel special. And that's what recruiting is, man. I mean, you got to a lot of these kids want to feel at home. And I think so far he's doing a good job.
All right, Keith says, I think the Gators are going to surprise a lot of critics next season. Not saying undefeated, but better than expected. I could see that. The schedule on paper looks like murder, but you got 7 home games. You got 7 home, or is it 8 home games this year? I can't remember. You got more.
I can't remember. No, it's a lot though. Yeah,
you got more home games than you had. It's tough, man. It's tough. You got Miami. You got Miami right out of the blocks, man. I mean, that's going to be tough. But yes, they should be better, I think.
If they could beat Miami, it'll be a big recruiting momentum if they can somehow put that one together.
Also, that's a game, and we're the recruiting guys, we're not the team guys, but that's a game. Margo Cristobal got to Miami at the same time as Billy Napier. That's a real measuring stick game for both of those guys, quite frankly. Tawan says, what is Vernell Brown III saying about Florida? Loves Florida, loves the receivers coaches, Billy Gonzalez, and especially David Decker. And, so I think that I think Florida, obviously, his dad's Vernell Brown II, played at Florida. His granddad played at Florida. He's had a bunch of uncles play at Florida. I think Florida's certainly going to be in there at the end of the day, but he's got a lot of people after him. Ohio State's of the world. Also, let me point out, Stanford just offered him. This is a 4.0 type student, very smart. He's doing a hell of a job on the field and off. Question about Hilton Stubbs, 4-star safety, 2025 class. Corey, in a nutshell, Florida leads with him. Very good player from Mandarin High School. What do you think?
Like you said, Florida leads. He's going to keep taking his visits and all. Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama's are all going to be in the mix to the end. But, Florida's the school he's visited the most. He's the most comfortable at. And, Will Harris has picked up the slack since Corey Raymond left. Relationship is growing.
Jimmy wants to know, this is more for our team guys. Jimmy, you'll want to ask Zach Alberverdi and Nick Delatorre this one. But thoughts on the Ron Roberts effect on defense? Well, we'll talk about recruiting. I wouldn't say he's a guy that is known for his being a super active recruiter. He's a ball coach, right? He's a ball coach. He's gonna that's what he's gonna utilize in his recruitment. But he knows he has a lot of connections across the South in states like Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. I think that could help Florida on the recruiting trail. Billy Napier just kind of defined him as the head coach of the defense the other day, which is weird because you've already got a defensive coordinator in Austin Armstrong. So we'll find out, get more of a true definition of their roles moving forward. But what I can tell you is that a high school coach, people think he's a guru, kind of a coaching guru. So I think that's it. Tawan, one more from you. We have a very underrated receiving core. They got to get out there and prove it. They got to get out there and prove it, I think. All right,
they need a real solid number 2 option, I just think, behind Eugene. They need that go-to number 2 guy.
Patrick says Andy Jean and Aiden Mizell will need to make a big jump this year, and I think the wide receiver room will look better. That's an excellent point. So we're not saying the wide receiver room isn't great, but you're having to make some assumptions that guys are going to make jumps to say that it's going to be a really good group. Now, they could, and we're not saying they won't, but Andy Jean and Aiden Mizell have not done anything yet at Florida, really. So we don't know what they're capable of. They may be great, okay? Jaquez Green and Travis McGriff didn't do a lot in their first year. You know what I mean? So we will see. I think that's it, Corey.
Yeah.
We graded the Gator class. We took questions, gave a lot of BS answers, faked it until we made it. And that's about it, man. This was Talking Gators Recruiting. We appreciate everybody stopping by. We're going to have a lot more recruiting content rolled out in the next few months. We took a little bit of a breather over the winter just to kind of catch our breath, but a lot more coming. Corey, we both have a big camp to go to this weekend, the Under Armour Orlando camp. There's going to be more than 24 Florida Gator targets there. There'll also be a couple commitments. Jalen Wiggins, the 4-star 2025 edge, and Waltez Clark, the 4-star 2025 running back. We'll have great coverage from that on Sunday. Corey's going to be off next week, but I'll have a couple shows even without him. They'll probably be better, quite frankly. And Corey, you didn't hear that. And
he's not
yeah, like I said, we appreciate everybody stopping by. For Corey Bender, I'm Keith Niebuhr. This is the Gators Online Talking Gators Recruiting Show. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by.